resist, human. Knowledge. Very well. However, when knowledge comes, consequences. The old gods, they don't even exist in this world anymore. The older gods are too pure for this world. They are the true forms of feeling and thoughts that linger in men. But humans are too tainted by their own mind and ambition. To understand beauty. Think of the perfect shape of fear and destruction. I'll take a look at the world you dwell. Do you see that shape? The shape could never exist amongst men. Because the shape varies between every human. If you could truly see the shape everyone shares, it would shatter. The individual mind and existence. Humans are weak. I can reveal the true form. Glimpses of it.
Before I start this video, I would like to say holy shit, I didn't expect such a positive reception on the previous video. Several times while making this video I thought about just scrapping the whole thing, mainly because it took a lot of work and I didn't think it was good enough, but I'm glad I didn't. Thank you very much for all the warm comments. I also really enjoyed reading your own takes on analyzing the game. One last thing about the previous video, I would like to thank specifically Wormgirl for shouting it out. This specific shoutout was one of the biggest reasons this video got so many views in the first place. If somehow you're watching this video and don't know who Wormgirl even is, you should stop watching and go watch her Fear and Hunger videos instead. Not only are they excellent, they're also the reason I and many others found out about Fear and Hunger in the first place. With that said, let us begin. This time I want to talk about the old gods in a more literal sense. However, before we do that, I wanna have a little continuation of the previous video. What the traces of Gro-goroth say after it gets bored of fighting you and starts to speak aligns nicely with the idea that Gro-goroth represents Thanatos and Sylvian represent Eros as they are in the Id. The traces say that the old gods are the true form of the feeling and ideas that linger in men, but human mind and ambition taints this pure form. The word mind could mean your entire psyche, but another definition is the part of you that actually thinks, feels emotion and can understand things, which are all functions of the ego. If the word mind in this sentence means the ego, then the word ambition means the superego. The superego is where your ideal self is located after all, and according to Freud, it is the source of all your ambitions. As stated in the previous video, the ego and by extension the superego use the raw energies coming from the id and transform them in order to achieve their own goals. If you are like Gro-goroth, which is a being of pure distraction, or in other words, distraction for the sake of distraction, taking those raw destructive energies and using them for things that are not purely destructive is a way of tainting them. For example, the human mind, the ego, using the defense mechanism sublimation in order to convert urges of pure distraction into fuel for socially acceptable actions that involve aggression or destruction, like walking out. Similarly, your superego can motivate you to convert raw death drive energies into fuel for your ambitions. For example, ordering your mercenary army to slaughter an entire village, including the children and the elderly, in order to both steal an artifact that is important to your ambitions and get the distinct experience of being a brutal conqueror so you can try and achieve your doomed ambitions of not only becoming a god but the one true god to rule them all. In conclusion, what the traces of Greg say about humans being too tainted by their own mind and ambition to understand the purity of the old gods fits nicely with the idea of the ego and superego transforming the purely destructive and creative energies of the id in order to achieve their own goals. You can see this idea in many places in Fear and Hunger. For example, the yellow mages using the blood magic of Gro-goroth in order to achieve their own ambitions. But perhaps the most direct case of the human ego and superego usurping the purely id-motivated powers of the old gods and using them for their own goals and ambitions is the story of Alll-mer and his ascension. A story I will tell in more details later on. For now, let's go back to the main subject of this video, the old gods in more literal terms. The first source you might go to naturally for information about the old gods is the many books you can find about them in both of the Fear and Hunger games. What I think is more important than the content of those books is who wrote them. As all of the books about the old gods we have access to in both of the games are written without exception by dark priests. In the second game, not including one exception, all of the books about the old gods are known as skin bibles and are written by one person, none other than Enki and Carrion himself, the playable dark priest character from the first game. The Dark Priests are worshippers of both the Old Gods and the Ascended Gods, with the main object of their worship being the Ascended God Alll-mer, or maybe Sulfur, it's not very clear. For thousands of years, by the time of Termina, the firstborn sons of Dark Priests were chosen, or perhaps a better word would be doomed, from birth to become Dark Priests or die trying. From the moment they're born to the moment they'll die, a dark priest will invest his entire existence into studying and worshipping the old and ascended gods. If that is the case, they might know the old gods better than any other group in the history of humanity. So reading the holy books is the best place to learn about the old gods, right? Well, no. Both the skin bibles and the older books about the old gods that you can find in the first game offer a similar view of the old gods. They humanize the old gods, presenting them as not very different from human in the way they feel and think, giving them human emotions like curiosity and love, and human relationships like husband and wife. But we know this view of the old gods is wrong from our first-hand experience with them. The old gods are far, far beyond humans. In fact, they are so alien to us, even glimpsing their true form for a moment will destroy us. We know this is true not only because the traces of Gro-goroth tells us so in the first game as seen in the intro, we actually experience it ourselves. When the traces finally reveals to us the true image of Gro-goroth, we get so fucking scared our body immediately shuts down in order to escape the absolutely unimaginable horrors we're witnessing, leaving us as nothing but a catatonic vegetable. Just from how the traces look, you might think that the Dark Priest may have been right after all. It is true that the traces of Gro-goroth look very similar to the sketches you can find in the books, but this is actually evidence for why the Dark Priests are wrong. As the traces of Gro-goroth tell us, the older gods do not even exist in this world anymore, because they are too pure. That means that the traces of Gro-goroth that do exist in our world may be a human corrupted version of the real thing left behind. The fact that they can even speak and understand our language may strengthen this point, with the human tainted version of Gro-goroth gaining some of the abilities of the human mind. The sketches in the books are probably based on the traces of the old gods and not the real thing. We don't even know if any human can even see the true forms of the old gods without going completely insane. It could be that the only dark priests to come back sane enough to write books about the gods are ones who only encounter the traces and not the real thing. But even if there are dark priests who can witness the true image of the old gods without going completely insane, it is probably impossible to even translate it to ink and paper. Even if there was a dark priest with the ability to translate the incomprehensible madness of the true form of the gods, I don't think the higher ups of the Church of Alll-mer will allow this knowledge to spread. It's pretty accepted in the community to believe that Enki's S ending from the first game is canon. I won't get into the specifics of its ending, as it involves the new gods and I wanna keep it for another video. But for the sake of this video, I'll just say that Enki sought enlightenment in the subject of knowing the gods, and I think he got it. Which means he may have learned about the true form of the old gods without going insane. More than that, he may have actually had the ability to translate the maddening truth of the old gods to a book, using some fucked up rituals of course. So, if Enki really had a breakthrough when it comes to understanding the old gods, why are the skin bibles of Gro-goroth and Sylvia not really any different than the books that came before? Maybe Enki had a secret burning passion for drawing. Maybe he didn't gain enlightenment in the Green Hue, but the ability to become a great artist, and the only thing changed between his books and the older studies of the old gods were updating the pictures to look way cooler. Well, no, of course not. In truth, the skin bibles we have access to in Termina are different than the original ones. We can actually find the quote-unquote unedited version of the Venushka skin bible, which offers us more information than the one we can find more commonly in Prevel. Anyways, I think the quote-unquote original version of the Venushka skin bible might be another edited version. Think about it, this could be the perfect trap to get nosy truth seekers made by the Church of Alll-mer. For all we know, the original skin bibles might be unique relics, making them impossible to mass produce. As said before, I think Enki may have actually learned the truth about the old gods, or at least came as close as humanly possible to that truth without going insane. And he may have succeeded in translating this truth into the original skin Bibles, making them very dangerous artifacts, as most people who interact with them will go insane. If that is the case, the higher ups in the Church of Alll-mer probably wouldn't want it replicated even if it was possible. But who knows? We don't actually know a lot about the leadership of the Church of Alll-mer. All we know for sure is that they're probably located in the Vatican, and they are probably the ones editing the skin Bibles. How much do they really know about the old gods? Are they actually worshipping them, or are they using their powers for other ends? If there is a Vatican in the world of Fear and Hunger, does that mean there is a Dark Pope? It is not very likely we'll get answers for those questions, even when the third game finally comes out. And I talked enough about the Dark Priests in this video anyways. So, in conclusion, even if the Dark Priests have the answer for what the old gods really are, we are not gonna get this answer from their books we have access to. Now, dear viewer, you might be saying, hey Uranium, in this video about what the old gods are, you sure spend a lot of time telling us what they are not. Can you get to the fucking point and tell us what you think they are already? Yes, of course. Yet there is a small, pretty big problem when it comes to theorizing about the old gods. While we don't have a lot of reliable information about the old gods, I think it's pretty clear that they are classic Lovecraftian gods. Most interactions we see with the traces alone lead to death or madness, and the only interaction we have with the real thing leads to the complete collapse of the human psyche. The old gods are beyond human understanding. If that is true, then any theory I will come up with my human brain to explain them will be completely wrong. But what the fuck is the fun in that, huh? Let's try and explain the old gods with theories coming straight from my inferior human brain, tainted with mind and ambition anyways. Let's start with my first theory, the forces of nature. Let's go back to the little talk we can have with the traces of Gro-goroth. More specifically to the line about humans being too tainted by our own mind and ambition to understand the purity of the old gods. This line may imply that the old gods in their pure form might not have any mind or ambition. They might not even be sentient at all. Gro-goroth, for example, doesn't destroy because he wants to clear up more room for the creations of Sylvian. It destroys because it is the only thing it can do. Pure destruction, without any reason or goal. Through rituals and prayers, we can turn our brain into a tool that can access the green hue and harness the sources of energy that are the old gods. Let's look at another example. Both the studies of Sylvian and the Skin Bible of Sylvian tell a similar story about a period of time where Sylvian took control of humanity, twisting us into something closer to her own image. She turned the entire human race into a synchronized mass of naked people locked in an eternal orgy. For the sake of argument, let's say this story is real. The Dark Priest will tell you that Sylvian did what she did because of her obsessive love for humanity. But if Sylvian is not even conscious, it could be that uncontrollable mutation and lust is just the natural reaction of humans interacting with pure Sylvian. We look at things like abominable Sylvian marriages and assume that Sylvian has a preference for monogamous lovers. However, it could just be that the process becomes way less stable when we do it with more than 2 people, leading to a result that is less desirable and functional by human standards. Praying to another god on a circle and then trying to make a Sylvian marriage messes up the process because we add another source of energy that is not the creation of Sylvian, leading again to an abominable marriage. Those results are not an abomination from the point of view of Sylvian, it is an abomination from the point of view of us, humanity. Sylvian turned the entire human race into a massive flesh orgy after all. What humanity does with the old gods is the same thing it used to do with unexplainable natural occurrences. When an unexplainable natural disaster hits a village and kills half its population, we can't accept that it was just random. We have to have an explanation in human terms that we can understand. We need someone to blame for this tragedy and steps to take in order to prevent another one. So we come to the conclusion that this is a punishment from an angry god because we didn't give him enough sacrifices, or maybe it's because some villagers are deviating too much from the norm. The same thing could be happening with the old gods, which means that they are not gods at all. They are some kind of natural force that we cannot explain. So far so good. But what about entities that seems to be both sentient and doing the will of the old gods? Entities like Pocket Cat, for example. It does seem like the servants of Rare in the first game have a very specific goal. Get the girl from you in a non-violent way so they can stop her from ascending. Doesn't that mean that Rare actually has plans, meaning that he is sentient? Well, not necessarily. It could very well be that the servants of Rare are not serving the original god, but the human-tainted traces of Rare. As mentioned before, I think that traces of the old gods are human-tainted versions of the gods, adopting human-like qualities that give them the ability to think and have goals. It could very well be that us humanizing the old gods and inventing stories about what they're like resulted directly in the creation of the traces. That could explain why they look exactly like they do in the books. It does seem that the power of our beliefs interact with the magic of the old gods. The same could be true with entities like Pocket Cat. It could be that stories about him came first, and then when enough people believed in him, he became real. The last thing left to address before moving on to another theory is the disappearance of the old gods. The more time passes, the more humanity is able to understand our world with reason and dominate it. With more and more advancements, human creation becomes more dependent on our ability to think complex thoughts and reason. The better we become at rebuilding our world to fit our own needs, the more ambitious we become as well. Things that seemed impossible, like reaching the moon, become less like an outrageous fantasy and more of a serious ambition. As the traces of Gro-goroth tell us, the old gods cannot exist in this world dominated by human mind and ambition. On top of that, we become better at understanding natural phenomena, predicting them and even controlling them, which eliminates the need in believing in gods like the old gods. In this human-dominated world, the old gods became less relevant and less powerful. And with less people believing in them, it could be that their ability to manifest in this world became weaker as well. Or maybe the connection between this world and the green hue became weaker in general. The last nail in the coffin probably was the ascension of Alll-mer. Ascended gods can be the subject of an entire video on their own, but I will try to explain them here in short. When an old god quote-unquote dies, a human can usurp its power and become a new old god. These new old gods, called ascended gods, are basically a marriage between an old god and a human. This new ascended god combines traits from the old god that quote-unquote died and the human that ascended. In the case of Alll-mer, the god he used to ascend was none other than the god of destruction, Gro-goroth. Similar to Gro-goroth, some of the magic of Alll-mer uses human sacrifice, but instead of using human sacrifice for more destruction, the magic of Alll-mer uses it for protection. While Gro-goroth doesn't care where the blood comes from, it seems like there is a significance for self-sacrifice in the Church of Alll-mer. Alll-mer literally taking the power of an old god and using it for human ambition and reasons signifies a shift from a world controlled by the chaos of the old gods to a world controlled by human reason and ambition. Yet, the old gods are far from gone, even the ones that are quote-unquote dead. Thousands of years after a god is quote-unquote dead, by the time of Termina for example, their magic is still potent and they still interact with the world. For example, by the time of Termina there is a new spell using the magic of Gro-goroth called Black Smoke. The description says that it is man-made darkness born from the Industrial Age, meaning that new forms of destruction interact with Gro-goroth and his magic. I think there is a chance that the god of destruction will become dominant in our world again. What if, for example, someone invented the atomic bomb in the world of fear and hunger? Yes, they invented it because they had ambitions of dominating their rivals in war, and yes, they used reason to make it, but this weapon is so destructive. If enough countries has it, actually using it may lead to a total atomic war that will destroy everything. It doesn't matter what kind of ambition led you to using it. It will lead to pure destruction. It will lead back to pure Gro-goroth. And they didn't even talk about what kind of hugely destructive new spells it will manifest. It doesn't seem like the old gods can really die. They represent fundamental aspects of our world. What the ascended gods do is take a very broad concept like destruction and become a god of a more specific aspect of it. Gro-goroth is a god of pure destruction. Alll-mer, on the other hand, is a god of using destruction in order to protect. In conclusion, my forces of nature theory claims that the old gods are not even conscious. They are pure representation of fundamental concepts like destruction and creation without the meddling of higher goals and reason. Like humans have been doing for thousands of years, we took a natural phenomena that we cannot understand or control and we categorized it with human terms. Because our belief has some kind of connection to the green hue, those stories about humanized version of the old gods we told ourselves slowly became real, giving birth to things like the traces of Gro-goroth and the other gods. Because meeting the real old gods leads to total madness or destruction, the only people who came back to tell the tale are people who met the human tainted traces of the old gods, leading us to believe that the old gods truly are like the ones we can read about in our books. With those stories spreading like wildfire, many religions were formed around the old gods. Over time, with the advancement of technology and culture, humans started to understand the world better and spread around the planet like a plague. In this world dominated by human reason and ambition, there was no place for the old gods anymore, leading to them disappearing slowly from our world. Throughout the years, many ambitious people wanted to surpass the power of the gods themselves. Most of them fell into the trap of becoming new gods and never came close to the power of the old ones. Except one man, Alll-mer. Alll-mer did what all the others failed to do. He usurped the power of an old god and became the first true human god, one that can rival the old gods. With the worship of the public shifting from the fading old gods to the new ascended god Alll-mer, the old gods became almost forgotten. Maybe forgotten, but not gone. No. As long as the concept they represent exists in our world, so do the old gods. And with the things going on in Termina, the old gods might manifest in our world more directly again. Okay, so at this point of the video I would have continued to another theory, but to be honest I got kind of burned out talking about the old gods. There are of course many other possibilities of what the old gods are. They could be, for example, very conscious and beyond human intelligence, having plans that we cannot comprehend. With these kind of mysterious entities, the possibilities are endless. I would love to read your theories in the comments, or better yet, make your own videos. Talking about making your own Fear and Hunger videos, here are some videos I saw that I think deserve some more attention. The first video I'll recommend is a video called the RPG Maker Immersive Sim. It's a video arguing that Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is actually an immersive sim, an argument that I didn't see anyone else making. Also, the same person, for some reason, remade the intro of the Venture Brothers with Fear and Hunger characters, and it's fucking great. You should go watch that as well. Moving on, there is another video I wanna recommend, which is an animated music video. Personally, I really enjoy those kind of videos, when someone picks a song that really fits a character and makes them perform it like they're in some kind of musical. This specific video didn't get much views for some reason, so let's fix that. And I think that's it for recommendations and this video. Thank you for stopping by the junkyard. I hope you found some gems underneath all the trash.